Are you enjoying the game today, too? Okay, let's do this. Today, we are firing up the time machine and going way, way back. We're doing a deep dive into the Portopia serial murder case.
That's the overseas title, the Portopia Serial Murder Case.
Right, and this isn't just any old game. We're looking at a title that basically invented the adventure genre in Japan, but also, and this is the key part, it secretly laid the technical groundwork for, well, one of the biggest RPG franchises on the planet.
Yeah, our sources for this are pretty comprehensive. We've got encyclopedic entries, but also some really fascinating interviews with the creator, Yuji Horii. And our game here isn't just to talk about that twist, you know, the one everyone spoils.
But we'll get to the twist.
We will. But we really want to dig into how he managed to translate this complex, text-heavy PC game over to the family computer, the FGC, with, you know, just a D-pad and 2 buttons.
I mean, this was the Wild West of console gaming. It was pure chaos. Do you remember having to write everything down, like furiously scribbling notes on graph paper because there were no passwords, no save files?
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely. You had to be a real-life detective just to keep track of your progress in the game.
Exactly. And in the middle of all that, Portopia comes along and gives us this deep, novel-like story, real human drama on our tiny little TVs. So yeah, we're focusing almost entirely on that groundbreaking console version.
Right. We're going to unpack the genius of Yuji Horii, the insane technical problems they had to solve, and of course, why this one detective story became an absolute cultural phenomenon because of one legendary spoiler.
Okay, so let's set the scene. Before it ever hit a console, this game started out on a PC, right?
It did. 1983 for the PC 6001, released by Enix. And what's kind of mind-blowing is that it was pretty much a solo project by Yuji Horii. He did the programming, the scenario, even the graphics, all by himself.
That's incredible. And the whole idea was just so different. At the time, PC games were all, you know, spaceships, fancy quests, mazes.
Engines, yeah.
And Horii just goes, nope, we're doing a murder mystery in modern-day Kobe City.
Yeah.
It was this deliberate shift toward like social realism. He wanted a story that hinged on character psychology, not just finding the key to the locked room.
And that focus on human drama was actually a really clever way to deal with the tech limitations. The memory was so low they couldn't do like complex alibi-breaking puzzles or huge maps.
Ah, so the story had to be tight.
It had to be surgically precise. It was all about revealing the why of the crime, not just the how.
And on the PC, you had to type literally key in your commands like, go to Shinkaichi.
They even had these weird little quirks, like it could understand some regional dialects, so instead of the standard command, you could type something like Shinkaichi Aikendayo, and it would actually work.
That's amazing.
And it had a sense of humor. The sources confirm that if you type something rude, like UF-AO, which means idiot, the game would fire back a response that basically called you the idiot. It was this really personal, interactive experience.
But all of that keyboard freedom just vanished when it moved to the family computer. Because, you know, no keyboard. That must have been a huge problem for an adventure game.
It was a massive hurdle, so they had to pivot hard. They adopted a command selection system, which Horii had actually tried out in another game of his, Wakatsuki ni Kiyu.
So instead of typing, you just pick from a menu.
Exactly. Instead of figuring out the right words to type, you just see your options on the screen. Look, talk, take, investigate.
And that one change, that was everything, wasn't it? It completely lowered the barrier to entry. Suddenly, anyone could play. Kids who only knew how to jump over barrels in Donkey Kong could solve a murder mystery.
And the sales numbers show it. It was the FC's very first adventure game, and it sold somewhere between 600,000 and 800,000 copies. It basically proved the genre could thrive on consoles.
Okay, so let's walk through the story of that console version. You play as the detective, the boss, and you've got your subordinate, a guy named Mano Yasuhiko.
But everyone just calls him Yasu.
Right, and you're investigating the murder of a loan shark, Kouzou Yamakawa, found dead in a perfect locked room.
And you meet the key players. There's Fumie Sawaki, the secretary who found the body, a security guard. It's interesting, too, the PC version's crime scene was an apartment, but the FC version changed it to a house, probably to make the locked room feel a bit grander, more dramatic.
The case gets messy pretty fast. Turns out the victim, Kouzou, was involved in some shady stuff with a couple of other guys, Hirata and Kawamura, and then, what do you know it, they both turn up dead.
And your partner, Yasu, keeps suggesting they were suicides. Like maybe the killer got scared and took himself out. He seems a little too eager to close the case.
But the boss, you're not buying it. You keep pushing. And eventually you find the real motive. It's all about revenge.
It turns out years ago, Kouzou and Kawamura committed this huge fraud that drove the parents of Fumie, the secretary, and her long-lost brother to suicide.
So Fumie and her brother are out for revenge. But Fumie has a perfect, ironclad alibi for the actual murder.
And here's where Hori's design is so clever. He uses the game's own system against you. Yasu is your partner. He gives you all the reports. He guides your investigation. He's your primary source of information.
He's the narrator.
He's the ultimate unreliable narrator. The game is hiding the truth in the one place you'd never think to look. Your own partner.
So the command selection system, that was a huge win. It just made the whole genre more approachable. You could focus on the story, on the mystery, without fighting the interface.
Absolutely. It cemented the adventure game as a core genre for the FC. But since they lost the difficulty of typing, they had to add new things to challenge the player.
Right. This is where the infamous magnifying glass comes in. The cursor you had to move around the screen to search for clues.
Pixel hunting, yeah.
Yeah.
And they also added that completely bizarre 3D underground maze. It feels so out of place in a detective story. But that's where you find a key piece of evidence, the victim's diary.
Okay, but let's talk about the pain, the real nostalgic trauma of playing this game. First off, no background music, just sound effects.
And the capacity limits were just brutal. They had to cut down the dialogue so much. And get this, the game's code could only use 21 specific katakana characters.
Wait, only 21 characters for the entire script?
Yep. They had to literally rewrite parts of the story based on which words they were allowed to spell. There's a famous story about how an item was supposed to be a pendant, but they didn't have the character for P, so they had to change it to a ring.
It's not just programming. That's like writing a novel with one hand tied behind your back.
Yeah.
That one detail tells you everything about how hard they were fighting the hardware.
And then there's the biggest complaint of all, the one we all remember.
No save feature, no passwords, nothing.
You had to do huge chunks of the game in one sitting. If the phone rang or you had to go to dinner, that was it. Start over.
Oh, the agony. I can still feel it. Sitting there with my graph paper, mapping the maze, writing down every single clue. It felt like homework. You had to be a detective just to remember where you were in the game.
And that magnifying glass command was so unforgiving. The hitboxes for finding evidence were sometimes like a single pixel wide. You could be staring right at a clue, but if your cursor was off by a millimeter...
There's nothing suspicious here. I heard that line in my nightmares.
But then for some reason, the hitbox for looking at a random theater sign would be huge. It's that classic, chaotic, early game design that's so frustrating and weirdly so charming now.
And nothing was more frustrating than the most infamous puzzle in the whole game, the one just for the FC version. The Rice Star Strawberry clue.
Ah, yes. Komichigo.
The dreaded star 15 trick.
Exactly. It was a short dial code for a push-button phone, 15. But the problem was, a lot of kids playing the game back then, we still had old rotary phones at home.
I had no idea what a push-button phone even did, let alone a short dial feature.
Right. So Hori was basically asking kids to solve a puzzle using technology they might not have even seen before. The difficulty was sky high because of that cultural context.
Okay, let's get to the climax, the big reveal. After all this, you finally piece it together. You find out Yasu has a butterfly-shaped mole on his shoulder.
Which matches the description of Fumie's long-lost brother.
You confront him, and he confesses. Yasu murdered Kouzou and Kawamura. Fumie admits she was his accomplice who created the locked room trick. And at the time, this was controversial.
It really was. The revenge backstory gave them a sympathetic motive, for sure. But a lot of critics felt betrayed. They argued that in a traditional mystery, making the partner, the person the player trusts implicitly, that the killer was cowardly. They felt it was unfair.
Unfair. I think it's brilliant. That's what great stories do. They subvert your expectations. The whole point of a detective story is that the detective is the one you trust. By making your own partner the villain, Hori forces you to question your own judgment. That's not cheating, that's compelling drama.
I agree. And the sheer audacity of that twist is exactly what cemented the game's legacy.
And what a legacy. I mean, it goes so far beyond just the game itself. That one phrase, the killer is Yasu. In Japanese, Hanen wa Yasu.
It became a huge piece of internet slang. It's a meme that's still used today, even in situations that have nothing to do with the game. It just means the culprit is the person you suspect the least.
Yasu might be the single most famous criminal in the history of Japanese video games.
And a big reason for that is a famous story from 1986. The comedian and director beat Takeshi. a massive star.
A cultural icon.
He was playing the game on his super popular late-night radio show, All Night Nippon, and he just spoiled it. He blurted out the killer's name live on air to the entire country.
That is the ultimate chaotic moment. You can't even imagine that happening today.
But here's the funny part. Instead of tanking the game, that spoiler made sales go up.
No way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Suddenly, everyone wanted to play the game to see what all the fuss was about. The spoiler itself became the marketing.
And that fame led to the big myth, the rumor we all wanted to be true.
Yeah.
That you could just start the game, immediately accuse Yasu, and beat it in 10 seconds.
A total myth. The game is built on internal flags. You have to see certain things and collect specific evidence before the option to accuse him even works properly.
Oh, you're crushing my childhood dreams.
Now, a skilled speedrunner who knows the exact path can finish it in under 10 minutes, which is probably where that legend came from. But no, you can't just guess on your first try.
What's really wild, though, is how Horii was dropping hints the whole time. If you look really closely at the original box art for the FC version.
There's a little drawing on it. It subtly shows Yasu comforting Fumie.
The spoiler was literally on the box from day one.
But the deepest layer of the story, the part that gets lost because of the spoiler, is the tragic irony of it all. Remember that diary you find in the maze?
Yeah.
It reveals that Kouzou, the first victim, completely regretted what he'd done. He was planning to leave his entire fortune to Fumie to atone for causing her parents' deaths.
Oh, wow. So Yasu murdered him.
Right before he could find out that the man he was getting revenge on was already trying to make things right. That layer of human complexity, that tragedy of timing, that's the real story, and it often gets completely overlooked.
Okay, but the biggest legacy of all, it's not the story, it's the system.
It is. That command selection system Horii invented to solve the FC's no keyboard problem. That system and the whole Horii Symphonics production team.
They took it and immediately used it to make Dragon Quest.
It's the direct ancestor. The DNA of the JRPG is right there. Fight, spell, item, run. That's just an evolution of look, talk, take, move.
That's amazing. I never made that direct connection.
And they even put a little nod to it in Dragon Quest I. There's a character who says something like, hey, I'll trade you my Portopia for your Dragon Quest.
That's great. He's connecting his own universes. And this legacy is still going, right? There was that new version on Steam a little while back.
There was. In 2023, Square Enix released a free tech preview. Square Enix AI tech preview. The Portopia Serial Murder Case. It's called an NLP adventure.
NLP. Natural language processing.
Exactly. Instead of picking from a menu, you can actually type or speak conversational commands. Things like, what was Fumie doing last night? Or, tell me more about the victim. It's trying to finally achieve that original PC dream of having a real conversation with the game.
So they finally solved the input problem for good.
They got closer, but there's a really interesting footnote to that. The original plan was to also include natural language generation, or NLG, so the AI characters could talk back freely and create new dialogue. They removed it before release. They were worried that a completely free AI could generate, unethical or inappropriate responses. So even today, there are still these huge, complex guardrails you have to build around player interaction.
It's fascinating how the core design challenges of the original are still being debated today with AI. The legacy is just inescapable.
It is. Yuji Horii himself once joked that the only possible sequel would be Portopia Serial Murder Case 2. The killer is Yasu, but every character's name would have Yasu in it. Yasuko, Yasukawa. Just to mess with everyone.
I would play that game.
In the end, Portopia was so much more than just a detective game. It was this foundational piece of interactive storytelling. It solved huge technical problems by brilliantly merging novel-like structures, like the unreliable narrator with the very real limits of early consoles. It changed everything.
Yeah. We spent all this time talking about the most famous spoiler in gaming history. But knowing who did it? That's just the first step.
Yeah.
The real mystery is figuring out why this story still connects with us. What was it about that very human drama, that collision of revenge and redemption, that was so powerful? It's still influencing how games are made today. Will the game be fun tomorrow too? Have a nice game.